How's it going, YouTube? Coach and today with another video, and today, guys, what the brand new is going to be the mid-season banlist prediction. Now, today we're actually talking a bit more about what I think could happen, because I genuinely don't feel like we actually need a ban list at the moment. Sure, there's a few cards that definitely could get addressed, but at the same time, we're kind of in a pretty good spot. There's a lot of cards that are doing pretty well, but they're not like super broken. But we also have to look at what cards are coming into the game and then what cards could be a larger problem down the road. So potentially some pre-hits, but we really don't need a ban list at the moment. But we are going to talk a bit more about what I could see, because I really like having a mid-season prediction to compare to what actually happens, to just kind of see how the format develops and what becomes really important and what becomes less important. So if you haven't already checked out my sponsors over on Gem, Dragonshield, Imperium, ChainLink, Grimoire, or Cloud, definitely go ahead and do so, all down below in the description, and let's hop right on into the first prediction. Sadly, we are going to start off with some tier hits. Listen. I love tier, okay? I love playing tier. The deck is super fun. That does not negate the fact that the millers are broken. These cards are absurd. I think that it's really unfair that if you want to play a deck that's not tier into tier and then your deck gets milled out, you're not really able to do a whole lot, because if you don't have an in-archetypal way to put a lot of those pieces back, let's say like a Fateful Adventure, you're not doing a whole lot in your turn. So even if your opponent whiffs, the ability for you to lose out on your turn because your cards are in the grave is really unfortunate. So I do, however, think that these cards definitely gotta go. I really don't love to say that, but you know, we gotta be objective here when it comes to the ban list. I don't want there to be bias. Obviously, it still happens, even if you don't want it to. It's just there. But these cards definitely gotta get addressed. They are very strong. I would have loved if we would have been able to keep tier without like the cards from Mama and really been able to have like fun with the deck. Maybe this means that we see the names go up to 2, because then the deck becomes a lot more manageable, but we'll have to see. Obviously, kit to 1, but like that's a long shot. Overall, the millers definitely gotta go, though. The next one here is gonna be Shavara. Now, Unchained has been doing really well. This isn't a secret. The deck is pretty solid. I think the only thing about the deck, though, at the moment that is really annoying, I would say to the least bit, would be Shavara. I would put this card to 1, because it makes it a lot easier for you to be able to negate things like Tour Guide or even like the Yama, so they can't just like chain a Shavara 24/7, you know? I think that's probably the worst thing to have to deal with into this deck for sure. But at the same time, I don't really think that Unchained is like be all end all in the meta or like the #1 deck, but I think that if we are going for an overall cleanup on a ban list, this is definitely something that has to get addressed, and the deck is still very much so playable, but I think that this is something that would just make the matchup become a little more favorable into many different matchups, especially playing hand traps in this deck feel a lot better. So I really wouldn't hate this, putting this card to 1. I think it'd be a really solid hit moving forward. The next one is Pot of Prosperity. Now, this is going to be such a split decision, right? So we've seen this before. Really expensive card, reprint card, banned card, right? So it's unfortunate, because this means that a lot of people finally get to use the card, which is amazing. I love that we have so many new reprints and everything becomes a lot more accessible. But we have seen this multiple times in the past, that once the card's accessible, it gets banned. And it's really unfortunate, but at the same time, card's really strong. Being able to just look at 6 cards off the top of your deck, especially back in Tri-Brigade format, when you could like mill out 3/4 of your deck and then just use this in search and IO, that was wild. You could still relatively do that with similar things. So I really do think that Prosperity is a card that we do see on the ban list, whether it's banned or to 1. I think this would also just be a very good hit the flu. It's just like a kind of interesting card that really does break the game, especially going second. Just the ability to dig is really good. So I think this is a card that definitely will see its time on the ban list, hopefully soon. If Desires is there, I definitely think we see Pros there. Maybe that just means we see props to 2, but it's gonna see some time, I'm sure. The next one here, I know I said no biased, and I meant that. D-Shifter has to get addressed. I don't care if it's to 1, even to 2. I'll take it. But this card has to get addressed. It doesn't matter if you're a tier player. It doesn't matter if you're a striker player. It doesn't matter what deck you're playing. A 2-turn lingering floodgate does not have space in the game. This is something where a lot of people are already upset about cards like Dweller and cards like Inscription when they're really good, right? But when you have a card like Shifter, it's just so mind-bending to me when there's so many people that will defend this card. If you look at full power tier, people were so angry because of the shufflers, and they couldn't keep a graveyard, but yet will defend a Shifter to let you have no graveyard. And that is so crazy to me. This card just has to get addressed. It's just so not okay. And sure, ban the Millers if you're afraid of tier, but at the same point, this card's gotta go. It's really crazy, and as a floodgate, I really don't think that this needs to be around, especially now that we're seeing most of the top decks siding this, because it hurts your opponent a little more than it hurts you, right? And there's just no room for cards like this in the game at the moment. Now, this one might be confusing, but at the same point, I really do think, and this might be a hot take, but just putting SP to 1, not touching it on the ban list otherwise, like getting rid of it, but like putting SP to 1, I don't hate. I had a conversation about this before too, and it's just because we're seeing like 2 and 3 of this in everyone's extra decks right now. So I think that putting this to 1 is definitely fine. It just makes it a little less annoying to deal with because the card's already the most broken card in the game. I think SP is literally the best card in the game at the moment. And this is something where putting it to 1 definitely makes it feel a lot more fair at that point too, because you don't have to worry about more coming out of the extra deck. And I did post a thing about this on Twitter too. Hulk did end up getting put to 1. It wasn't until a bit later, but at the same point, it's like the same logic, right? You just don't want people to have extra follow-up into cards like this. If you can like recycle it, i.e. even in tier, you can shuffle this back and make like a Mud Dragon, which is fine. But I just don't really think that we need more than one of this in the extra deck. And I'm sure this will get left alone because, you know, this card just came out and it's super broken and will sell a lot of product. But at the same time, I could see it going to 1. It'd be an interesting hit, but we'll see. Striker Dragon, I think this just has to go. We're still seeing Dragon Link. Magnuma went to 1, Chaos Phase went to 1, where like that literally doesn't matter, and the deck's still doing well. I think it's finally time that we see the Striker Dragon hit. We keep talking about this every single time, and it just hasn't happened yet. I think that if you're really looking for a way to just hit Dragon, just hit Striker. Like, this is the one. So we'll definitely have to see if this happens, but this would be a really solid hit moving forward. Now, the next one's going to be Calamity. So Calamity is a really unfortunate card because the second it gets summoned, you're in a really bad spot. This is something that is going to be turboed out in Centurion. Centurion's not the craziest deck, but at the same time, when this card can get pumped out real quick, it becomes an issue. So it can definitely see this be a preemptive hit after we just saw this in Punk Furion last year, like early last year. Definitely an interesting card, but at the same point, this definitely is something that has to get addressed as well because of the fact that it's just going to be another like Zexal situation, which is definitely interesting. The card itself is really broken, but it could be fine. I will have to see how good Centurion performs. I think it would be a really smart preemptive hit though. The last one here is Gamma. Gamma is a card that went to 1, and rightfully so, because this card is so broken, and a lot of times in decks like Dragon, if this card resolved, you're probably just winning the game. But if we are going to have cards like D-Shifter legal, this probably has to go back to 3 to be able to answer some really problematic situations. I think Gamma created a really toxic board state where it's like, well, I have this hand trap, but I don't want to use it because if I use it, I get punished really hard by the Gamma and I probably lose. So this card's also really game breaking, really format breaking. But I do think that if we are going to have the same thing about like, well, we can have this broken 2-turn lingering floodgate, I think that we need an answer to it at least. Same situation with like Red Reboot. I know a lot of people have like some really hot takes about Red Reboot. I still think that card should be legal. If we're gonna have cards like Rollback, Eradicator, we're gonna have D-Barrier, either give us a real answer or give us back Reboot. I don't have a problem if we have like a hand trap reboot that just shuts down like a trap. I think that would be really good. If it's like set that one trap and then let them set a new one from deck, I think that would be really cool. But at the same point, we just need answers to inherently broken card design. So, I mean, Gamma is also very broken card design, but at the same time, I think this is something that could come back to. Definitely let me know what you think down in the comments below about what could happen in the next ban list, because I don't really think that we need one, but at the same time, there's definitely a lot of cards to talk about because there's a lot of problematic situations being brought up in the game at the moment, especially looking at Rollback coming in January. That card's really scary, so we'll have to see exactly what happens with that. Maybe we see an Erad ban, because that is a card that can definitely get copied with Rollback, because the Rollback skips the cost of the cards, so you can just go activate Erad and then just like rip all the spells out of your opponent's hand turn 0. Real fun, right? But if you haven't checked out my Discord, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, or my Metafy page, definitely go ahead and do so, all down below in the description. Also, subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 30,000 subscribers. Oh, that's such a crazy number to say. We're on our way to 30,000. So if you want to be a part of the ride, definitely go ahead and hit that sub button, join the Discord for sure, and join the family. And I'll talk to all of you later. Thank you.